achieve, and whatever goal they reach, whether, let's say, they're striving for an A in school and they get a B plus, it doesn't crush them. It's not the biggest deal in the world, They don't, their self-esteem, their self-worth is not all wrapped up in an A. A perfectionist, it's different. A perfectionist, that's where they get their worth and value, is in their performance and in achievement. And in doing this and doing a little research about it, it reminded me of, I usually take everything back to the childhood, and it reminded me of the 4 roles, major roles in childhood where children are raised in alcoholism or any form of dysfunction. There's definite roles that are played out, particularly in alcoholism and drug addiction. We see it over and over and over, and it's usually the oldest child. Not always, sometimes it'll be the next oldest, but normally it's the oldest child that becomes the family hero. And so many of your family heroes will become perfectionists. And when I got to, kind of researching this, it's almost a profile for a hero child coming out of the disease of alcoholism because, children who are raised in alcoholism, and this is a no-fault deal. I am not beating parents up. I want you to hear me say that. Alcoholism is a disease. It affects every person that's involved, in the disease. If you have a dog, there needs to be a Dog Anonymous or a Dog Al-Anon meeting, because a Dog Anon. Everyone's affected by the disease. And so children definitely are. And I was thinking about the hero child, how the ones that we've treated, many of them are perfectionists. A high percentage, not all, but a high percentage are also anorexic. You find a lot of perfectionism in anorexia. They want the perfect body, they want the perfect this, the perfect that. So, there's no perfection. Now, what a high achiever will do, a high achiever knows their limitations. A high achiever, it's like the Big Book talks about. We strive for perfection, but we settle for progress. And that's what a high achiever does. They strive for perfection, they want to do well. And then they settle, for progress. It's progress, not perfection. When we can see a little progress, we look back and think, good for me, look what I've done. But perfectionists, very seldom say, good for me. A true perfectionist really never sees their job complete, or they never see it done good enough. So it's a trait that there's not really a diagnosis for perfectionism in the mental health literature, although it can be listed under OCD. Many of your OCD people are extreme perfectionists. And so that OCD is, the doing, overdoing, overachieving. So let's go over some of these. It's really looking for perfection in unrealistic through unrealistic eyes. You cannot, none of us can be, we're perfectly imperfect human beings, perfectly imperfect. But a perfectionist strives for perfection and feels failure when they don't achieve it. So that's the first symptom, is fear of failure. A perfectionist, they have and also they have a fear of starting new projects for fear they'll fail. But they do have that real fear of failure. And I was thinking there when I started thinking about the roles in the family, how the hero child in, in alcoholic homes, there's really no direction in alcoholism, to the children. They have to make up what is normal. And so for that older child, that hero child, they do turn out to be perfectionists many times because they overdo, and they have such a fear of failure. So that's number one. Another one is number two. They have unrealistic expectations. They put so high expectations on themselves that no one, can achieve it. And so and it's not others putting the expectation on them. Maybe, there again, that, I hate to say it, everything comes back to the childhood. A lot of times, in some households, perfectionism is put on children. That desire, for parents wanting them to perform. And I will tell you, this is a little bit of true confession time. My oldest daughter, and I don't know if she's probably seeing a client, I don't see her on here. All of our kids were smart, but my oldest daughter is brilliant, high IQ, did well in school, skipped a grade, which I wish we hadn't done that, but that's in the past. But I saw from the time she was 6, 7, 8 years old, how smart she was, intelligent-wise. She could read something. Like, I have a hard time following instructions. Well, I have to get them out of the trash first to read them. When something doesn't work, then I finally give up and read the directions. But Karen could read directions from the time she was 6, 7, 8 years of age and tell me how to do something. And I was just marveled at this child of how smart she was. Now, if she was on here, I would say she's never, she's building more, what is it? Anyway, common sense. She had a professor one time that told her, he said, "You are the smartest student I've ever had, but you don't have a lick of common sense." And she just smiled and took it as a compliment. She went home and asked her dad what common sense was. And he said, "If you don't know, you don't have it." He said, "You need to go look it up." So I'm just talking about this firstborn. She wasn't the firstborn, but she was the firstborn of our daughters. And like I said, she was very smart. And as her mother, I could see her potential. And this is what parents can do for a child that has potential. What I did is I pushed her. And so I had my handprint on her back from the time she was a little bitty girl till she finished college and beyond, because I knew her potential. And that is sad, because I set unrealistic expectations on her. Therefore, I think she has in her past always set unrealistic expectations. So, and that's what perfectionists do. They will set the goals so high that they never quite reach them. And then it creates that feeling of not being good enough. Number 3 is perfection. A perfectionist are concerned more with failure than success. They always have that fear. I don't like to use the word always, but they will a lot of times have that fear of failure. What if I fail? What if I fail? They don't enjoy the process. They don't enjoy the process of growing and striving and learning like high achievers do. A high achiever, they want success, but they enjoy the journey, and they enjoy learning along the way. They enjoy learning what they don't know, and they don't feel bad about what they don't know. Perfectionists do. A true perfectionist, get on planet Earth thinking they need to know everything, and they feel bad about themselves when they don't have the answers for people, for employers, for parents. perfectionists are really rough on themselves. And so they are, always concerned about failure. And and then number 4, what this can create is that feeling of depression. Many of your perfectionists suffer from depression because they have unmet goals, expectations that they've put on themselves. Not so much that they've put on, that other people have put on them. I've owned up to putting, these expectations on my oldest daughter, and some parents do that. And that will create, they'll go eat one way or the other. They'll either be perfectionists or they won't do anything. So perfectionists are always trying to beat themselves. They're always trying to do it better than they did the last time. And up the ante. They're always wanting to up the ante because they don't feel like they've accomplished what they set out to accomplish. All of this is an inside job. And so when they don't do that, which is not humanly possible, then they will wallow around in negative feelings. Woe is me, bless my heart, I can't do anything right. Also, number 5, people with perfectionism personalities also have higher levels of anxiety. And research has shown this over and over and over. I'm not going to call out any names this morning, but I've got some people on here that I haven't seen for a while, and I think they have tuned in because they know they're perfectionists. It's good to see them, but I think you're all in recovery from perfectionism. But anyway, it's good to see all of you that we haven't seen for a while. Talking about, let me get me a Kleenex here. It can produce anxiety. And anxiety, see, perfectionism, like I said, alone doesn't carry a mental health diagnosis. It is what it leads to. Depression, for one, that's a mental health diagnosis. Anxiety, number 2, that's a mental health diagnosis. And so it's, I've seen many perfectionists come in, and it's not all the time anorexics, but a high record of anorexics are also perfectionists. And they're hand wringers. They wring their hands, they can't be still. They want to do something. They've always got to perform and achieve. And they wear themselves out. And so, then all of that comes down, that fear of failure, fear of not, doing it good enough, being depressed, that leads to anxiety. And so then number 6, and this is a weird one, but I have seen it. I went through a period of my life being a perfectionist. I call myself a recovering perfectionist, but this is a symptom that I had, this number 6, is procrastination. You wouldn't think that procrastination would be linked with perfectionism, but it is, because if you don't think you can do it perfect, you put it off. You put off doing it. You put off doing it. You put off doing it. That's procrastination. And it goes back to that fear of failure. A lot of your perfectionists will procrastinate till the last minute. I used to always say if there wasn't a last minute, I'd never get anything done. I always perform the best at the last minute. That's when I, would shine. I don't do that anymore because I don't do near as much as I used to, but it was always that last minute, where you have to push yourself, and do it a little better than you really had even planned to do. So procrastination is a big thing. And procrastination, one of the definitions for procrastination is sneaky fear. The bottom of procrastination is fear. We call it sneaky fear, because you put off doing something that you probably have a fear that you don't know how to do, or that you can't do it good enough, you can't do it perfect, so you just keep putting it off and putting it off. And then I'm still on procrastination. What will happen, that sneaky fear comes up and people will get paralyzed in it, and they'll get frozen, and then that fear of failure, and then that all comes together under procrastination. And then number 7 is defensiveness. Defensiveness is when people catch on to what you're doing, and like I said, I used to be a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I mean, I was a young married woman. I had a baby. We had 3 babies real fast. I had, 3 bonus children, and I kept a spotless house. And why I would want, I'd stay up at night. We had tile, that square tile that was common back in the 70s. It was on the floor. It's linoleum, but it was square linoleum. I would wax that sucker, and then I would buff it at night when the kids were in bed. And this is so stupid. I hate to even tell on myself, but I would hold my foot down on every square of that tile and count to 50 and polish it. Well, the next morning, the kids would get up. They couldn't hardly, they'd have on those little footy pajamas, and they couldn't even walk on the floor. It was like being on a skating rink, They'd slip and slide. But, by gosh, I had those floors shining. And there was something that felt so inferior inside of me. That low self-esteem was so low in me that I had to make my outsides look good. And my outsides never match my insides, because I had, very little self-worth. And then when my husband would say something about it, or anyone, I brought it out here when I first opened Shays, my perfectionism. And then, my employees, different people would confront me about being my perfectionism. And then I would be defensive against it. And I could not, and I think this is a big symptom of perfectionism, is we can't take criticism. We cannot take criticism, because when you're criticizing me, you're criticizing my being, my everything. And because what a perfectionist makes up is what they do is who they are, and how they look on the outside and what they accomplish on the outside really reveals who they are. And that is so not true, but that's what we make up. And that's why I keep going back to this family roles of children, and how let's see, I was going to try to think of Virginia Satir, the grandmother of family therapy, is the one who came up with the roles, and I'll call it families of children, that hero role. And the next one is, the next child looked at that hero and they realized they couldn't do it perfect, so they went the other way and they became the scapegoat. And they're the ones who got all the attention in the family. When you have a kid that has a problem, that gets parents' attention. And then that third one was, they were having babies so fast, this alcoholic family couple, in order to, put the coupleship together. They thought, well, another baby would help. And this third baby comes out and looks around, and they don't want to have to be like the perfectionist and work themselves to death. And they don't want to be like the scapegoat and get in trouble all the time. So they just go in their room. They just hide out. They're your lost child. And they get in there and they play with their dolls and their toys. And in today's time, they get in there with computers and games and all. We still have lost kids. We still have these 4 roles very strong in dysfunctional families. And so, that doesn't work either. And so this 4th child coming along, they look around and they think this family needs some lightening up. You know, it's too serious. So they will become your mascot. They will become your joker. They will bring levity to the family. But I'm saying all those roles, when you really get them in treatment and get to working with them, there's a little bit of perfectionism in each one of them because they have perfected their role. That role is how they have been able to survive in that dysfunctional family. So as clinicians, we're not real eager to strip them of that role. Our job is to put a mirror in front of them and help them see, you know, has that role served you? You know, for a perfectionist, is that serving you in your adult life? You know, is it serving you in the workplace? A perfectionist, and I'll tell you, when I went to work, my first job in the field, major job ever, was when I went to work at a treatment center, and there were no alcohol, very few alcohol and drug centers around, and very few in the state of Texas, and none in our area. And so I went in there with the idea, I had a little education under my cap. You know, a little education can be a bad thing sometimes. I mean, it could be a good thing. But when you have a little education, I thought I knew something. And, you know, in a way I did. But I went into that old, worn out, it was a flop house. It was nothing but a flop house. And they detoxed people, and mainly men. They detoxed men. They went back out on the streets. These were street people. But I got in there, and being the good codependent and Al-Anon that I was, I saw the potential, and that's what perfectionists do. They can see the potential in any situation. So I saw the potential of what that flop house could become, and I worked myself into work addiction, bringing that treatment center to life. Now, I didn't do it by myself, but what I did is I gathered people around me that could help. You know, went up to Arkansas, got Joe McQuaney. Anyway, I worked hard at it through my perfectionism, and I never got it good enough, and I didn't have a pattern to go by. Now, this is what adult children of alcoholics do when they come out of alcoholic homes, and they have that perfectionism, and they don't usually have a pattern to follow. There hadn't been someone in that family teaching them, you know, how to do things, and so they never know when they have achieved to a level that's good enough. You know, they keep striving for more, striving for perfection to get it perfect. So number 8, all of this then, this feeling of failure, this feeling of, and I will tell you, your perfectionist, they can do a lot. They're doers. They're human doers until they wear themselves out, and then they won't do anything. You know, they go kind of flip back and forth. But they really never, very seldom, ever take care of themselves. When they take care of themselves is when they get sick from overworking. So number 8 is perfectionists have very low self-esteem. They get their esteem outside themselves from their doing. They become human doers instead of human beings. And they tend to push themselves away from others because they don't feel good enough. They don't feel good enough. I just want to bless our hearts. Every perfectionist, I want to bless our hearts because this is what is created in us. And I keep going back to children raised in any form of dysfunction. These roles come out, and they come out very distinct. I don't think we suck them out of our thumbs. I think they're created in childhood and in some ways put on them, and it's not parents' fault, you know, get off of that. It's not, but that's due to the situation. That's the situation. And so, you know, children who are raised in dysfunctional families are really not allowed to be children. They have to be something other than than who they are, which is just perfectly imperfect little kids, you know. So, what are the causes? I've already told you some causes. So the number one cause of perfectionism for people that they get into perfectionism is that fear of being judged, that judgment, feeling of being judged, and also feeling of being disapproved, that disapproval from others, whether it's an employer, a spouse, your own children. I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know if my kids realize this or not, but I mean, until I got into recovery I started in 1968, and I will tell you, I went to Al-Anon in October of 1968, but I wasn't just a real quick learner. It took me a while to really get the program. But I would feel like I had let my own children down. You know, I couldn't get my mother sober, and I thought that was my job. I couldn't get my husband sober. I thought that was my job. And then I thought I had let my children down. And that's not a good way to raise children, is to, you know, to give them that much power. But anyway, I always felt like my children didn't approve of me, particularly as they began to get a little older. I had that fear of being judged by particularly my oldest son, and I had that judgment, and that's what a lot of times will cause perfectionism, children being judged. Number two, and I beat this to death, is early childhood experience. So is, you know, like parents putting unrealistic expectations on children. You know, I have seen this happen to where we'll get clients and that are overachievers, that have achieved massive, massive things in their lives. And having an eating disorder or having addiction, they feel like such failures in the family. And perfectionistic parents that are wanting these people to be perfect will put that on them too. They will see them as failures until they get their own education about addictions and eating disorders. Number three, though, this is where having a mental health diagnosis can come in. Many of your perfectionists can be diagnosed with OCD. You know what OCD is. I mean, it's just that overdoing, you know, it can be hand washing, it can be, you know, whatever. You pick the activity and it's overdoing it. And so that can bear that diagnosis. Perfectionism can bear the diagnosis of OCD. I mean, if you've ever been around someone that has the type of OCD that is in like all areas of their lives, you know, where they overdo in all areas, I'll tell you, it wears you out to watch it. Now, some people who suffer from OCD, it's just specific things, like the hand washing to the point that their hands get raw. It'll just be different activity. But it can be, if they're perfectionists, they can be OCD in lots of areas. And it will wear you out to be around them. So number four, there again, is that poor self-esteem. At the center of perfectionism is poor self-esteem. So where does self-esteem come from? It comes from the inside out, and that usually comes to us from being in healthy families. Healthy parents esteem their children. Now, they don't over-esteem them. They don't put them up on a pedestal like I did with my oldest daughter. I put her up on a pedestal, and there wasn't anything that she couldn't do. I made her more than what she was. She was a kid. She was a teenager. And I over-esteemed her. And what it does, it can bring on the opposite. It can bring on poor self-esteem. because when you're put up on a pedestal like that, you feel like you've never done it good enough. So poor self-esteem. Number 5, feelings of inadequacy. I can only speak for myself on this. I went to work at age 13. A lot about my age. I had to be 16. Later on, my boss him and his wife became dear, dear, dear friends of mine. They owned a theater, and I worked for them from age 13 to 17, and they almost made me a part of their family. And I went into that job not knowing what to do, and I felt very inadequate. So I overdid. I would overdo everything. So that really makes for a good employee until they get to thinking, like I did at age 13 and 14, that I could do everything better than all the other girls or women that were working there. So I'd go behind them and redo what they did. Then they'd get mad at me. I don't know why they'd get mad at me, but I would make it a point that RG, my boss, would know what they didn't do. I mean, because of my own feeling of inadequacy, I had to kind of build myself up, make myself look better than them. So number 6, this goes right into what I'm talking about. Perfectionists feel like that they have a need for control. They can't control what's going on the inside because, see, they have that low self-esteem. They don't feel like that they're adequate doing the job. And so they feel like they need the control. And that, again, that is that living in uncontrollable situations, like living in the disease of alcoholism, where it can absolutely create perfectionism, where children try to get control in the household and get control of the alcoholic, and they never feel like they get their job done. So they grow up with that need to control. If everything's in order, then they'll feel good on the inside. I still have, now I want to tell you, I am not anybody's perfectionist today. I like a clean home. I like things in order. But you ought to go look in my bathroom right now. It looks like a teenager's been in there. I mean, trying on clothes, throwing them down in the floor. I mean, I can make messes today, but I know who's going to clean them up. I'm going to clean them up. I'm not such a perfectionist toward myself. I cut myself some slack today, and I wouldn't cut myself slack for anything. You think I'd be in here doing this if I had a messy bathroom and then tell you about it? No, because somehow I would think if I had a messy bathroom, it'd be a reflection on me. That is so stupid. That is so stupid. But anyway, I have a messy bathroom. If you're in town, if you want to come to it, you could look at it. But, when I'm busy or when I just have a lazy day. I was lazy yesterday. I did go to a movie. Well, it wasn't so lazy. I did do a little yard work, and then Kim and I swam. I had a great day. And, my bathing suit's laying there on the floor. Now that's what I would not allow my children, and this is some of the pain that I have of raising my children. I wouldn't allow them to throw things down. They wouldn't no more leave their shoes out or their books out. And I've done my 12-step work, thank you, Bradley, and I've made my amends to my children. But those are the things that I've had to look at with my own kids, how much I put my own perfectionism on them. So that need to control, number 7, is getting their self-worth out of achievement, become human doers instead of human beings. So how do we overcome perfectionism? There is always a solution. And it is, one thing is to create an environment around you where you feel accepted, where you accept yourself and where you feel accepted. create an environment around you. That means, be selective in who you hang out with. Select people who accept you the way you are. Now, my dear friend Misty is sitting over here, and I get up in her business sometimes. I really do get up in.
A lot of times.
She says a lot of times. I speak truth into her.
Sometimes. Practices all her preaching on me.
And yeah, she said I save up all my preaching and give it to her. But it is about finding people, surround yourself with people that accept you the way you are, or that people can give you a little bit of advice about raising kids or something. Anyway, number 2, engaging in positive self-talk. We talk about and give assignments after assignment after assignment about affirmations. And people can make fun of them all they want to, but I'll tell you what, they work. We give the assignment of doing 50 simple affirmations. Simple. Not to go long, complicated, but simple. I am loving, I am kind, I am beautiful, I am thoughtful, I am a child of God, I am. 50 of them. And then look in the mirror in the dark part of your eye 5 times a day and read those affirmations to yourself. Do that for 2 weeks and your brain's going to pick them up. Something will shift in your brain. Now, people that are perfectionists will write 100 and then they will try to overdo it and then they get tired. And I see it happening over and over. Perfectionists will try to overdo. Then they get tired and they give it up and won't do it at all. Keep in mind, a perfectionist is all or nothing. They are either overdoing or they're not doing anything. They're not going to do anything in the middle of the road. So if you want to create positive thoughts and change those thoughts in your head about yourself, put in some positive self-talk through healthy affirmations. And then number 3, stop comparing yourself to others. God, quit comparing yourself to others. You don't know what's going on in their lives at all. And we all have different talents. Look at your talents. Thank God for your talent. And quit comparing yourself to someone and trying to be like them. Number 4, practice mindfulness. And that goes back more, kind of to the affirmations. But mindfulness is focusing on the present moment. That's what mindfulness is. It is about, and I'll tell you folks, this works. If you have a scrambled mind, a scrambled brain, you go into your office, you go in somewhere. I would go in there in my messy bathroom, be myself. But anyway, if you're in a bind, get off somewhere just a few minutes by yourself. One thing that's good is to hold a lighted candle, but you're not going to have a lighted candle wherever you are. But you can take a pen like this. You can sit down and you can focus on that pen. See, there's silver on the top of this black pen. You focus on this pen. Focus on that pen. And then your mind will wander and it'll go back off to not being perfect and having to do this and do that and do something. Bring it back to the silver part of that pen and focus. Focus. It is about focusing your mind. That's what mindfulness is to help you. And this right here, I would light a candle of a morning, because my mind would be so scattered in 40 million directions. And, I was also a work addict, and I'd have so many projects going, and I wouldn't know where to start. And so I learned this at a workshop, to light a candle and set that candle, either hold it. Of course, I burnt my hand a couple of times, so I would hold it. I put it in a candle holder, and I'd hold that candle and you look at that flame, and when you look at that flame, you can't be thinking about a whole lot of other things. You try it, and see if that doesn't work, because that flame is going to go in different directions depending on the movement in the room. It's going to have different colors, and it'll go up for a minute, it'll go down, it'll be yellow, orange, green, yellow. Focus on the flame. That is mindfulness, and that will help you learn to stay in the moment. And then without the candle, once you practice that every day, if you're at work and things are crazy, you pull out a pen, and people won't think anything about it. They'll just think you're looking into space. Pull out a pen and look at it. Focus on the tip of that pen. That's all you can focus on. And your mind will be on that pen, and it'll kind of fade out what's around you. And that is mindfulness, is bringing yourself back to the present moment. Because what we get in with perfectionism is that fear of the future. We're always in the fear, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen this afternoon, tomorrow, next week, Always fear of the future. Or we get in the past, oh, I wish I hadn't done so and so. We get into guilt when we get into the past. Those 12 steps are designed for us to live guilt-free. You do those first 9 steps and you do the 9th step, you make your amends, you're going to get out of feeling guilty. Feeling guilty is a choice. You put it on yourself. And when you feel guilty, you're living in the past. So look at what you're guilty of and clean it up. Clean up your past, clean up the mess that you've made. And if you're guilty, declare yourself guilty, clean up your mess. If you're not guilty, declare yourself not guilty. I got to Al-Anon feeling guilty and responsible for everything and everyone around me. It's like I had guilt written across my forehead. And I'm grateful to Al-Anon for every day that they taught me that I'm no longer guilty. Now, I'm responsible for the sorry state of my affairs, but I'm also responsible for the good in my life. Me and the God of my understanding. I can't put it off on anybody else anymore. Okay, so another thing is get a good therapist and work on CBT, that's cognitive behavior therapy. It will challenge those negative thoughts. That's good therapy. Get you a good therapy. And then number 6 is the help of all help. And, of course, y'all all know that I love the 12 steps and I love what it does. You do those first 12 steps and it's going to march you up face to face with the God of your understanding. You don't, it probably won't. But what will happen, number 6, is spirituality is the key. And my favorite scripture is be still and know. Be still and know that He is God. And perfectionists need to stop playing God and know that there is a God and it's not any of us. All right, that's what I have about perfectionism. Anyone have anything, any true confessions anyone have? Or recovery. Talk about your recovery, because I've got some people on here that are in good recovery from perfectionism. Do I need to call on you, Bonnie?